I think one of the most destructive things that's happening to the world and our society right now is the death of nuance. I think nuance is so important because everything has nuance. There's a lot of information um, that we have not unpacked yet about almost every major subject. Whether you're talking about, Israel and Palestine, whether you're talking about, uh, you know, subjects as complicated as trade, economics, all these subjects or like trending stories like the Epstein files, all this stuff has nuance at its core. And I feel like we have become a culture in America, and I say in America because this is not a problem in a lot of places in Europe, nowhere near like it is here. Because we're a little bit more addicted to the internet here than I think you'd be surprised to discover exactly how much more we're addicted to the internet in America than a lot of other countries. Um, and that's a fact. So, what I will say is that I don't feel that people have gotten dumber. I think that technology, especially social media. I mean, I talk a lot about social media and its detriment on civilized society. It's been pretty bad in terms of what it has done to the fabric of society and humanity and all kinds of stuff. But what social media really did is it spread information quicker than information has ever been spread before. So it also created an economy around followers and clicks and views by paying people money for things that go viral and for content that keeps people glued to their phone, to their social media app, and so on and so forth. And so people know that outrage, as I've said before in other videos, outrage draws that attention. It gets those clicks. Getting mad very quickly and rushing to judgment and all of that, and making posts you know, before we even know all the facts. And then, of course, people have a emotional reactionary response. And there's a FOMO that kind of sets in, because if you notice when you're on a phone and you're scrolling and you see something and it immediately it's provocative. Like the moment you see something, the app and the algorithm is designed to put things that will provoke you in front of you. That's the entire purpose of how it operates. And it works that way because it's designed to get you to engage. And it knows that you'll engage more if it provokes you. So people are sitting on their phones and they're scrolling through content that is this outraged, radicalized opinion that is completely void of facts or doesn't have all the information, ignores nuance, but just puts this emotional reactionary argument in front of you, which you respond to immediately. And the reason why you respond to it immediately is because once it triggers that emotional response in you, you only have a certain amount of time to react to it. Because in a moment, your app is going to refresh and do that thing that happens where all of a sudden it disappears. We all know what I'm talking about. I mean, you ever see something on Instagram or something like that and you're like, oh, I want to show my friend. And then right before you go to show it, somehow it refreshes and then it's gone. You lost it. That's on purpose. That's on purpose because it wants to create a FOMO, a fear of missing out with your engagement. So you have to hurry up and engage. So you see these provocative posts and that trigger an emotional reactionary response in you. And then you have a time constraint as to how fast you can hurry up and get what your thoughts are on what you saw in the comments as fast as possible. Because if you don't, it'll disappear. And then you'll be left with this feeling that sets in, like almost like somebody got away with something. Like they said something to you that it was like somebody punched you in the face and then walked away and you never got your punch back. And this is all by design. This is all by design. And then what this does is you end up in a situation where, because everybody's reacting as fast as possible to provocative content, they end up going and leaving a comment that's just as provocative or outrageous as the original content that they were responding to. And then, of course, somebody else comes along and they see that provocative comment, and now they got to say something just as provocative and offensive in the opposite direction to that comment. And all of this is what they call engagement. And this is resulting in the internet being the most toxic cesspool of the worst of humanity imaginable. And the internet doesn't want to wait for courts. The internet doesn't want to wait for judges or juries or evidence to be presented. And it's because people are emotional creatures and they want immediate results to make them feel better. So when you see, when you watch, you're scrolling and you hear a story about a guy that committed some form of SA on a child, your immediate response is, I want him dead. I want him gone now. Lock him up now. And then everybody jumps on that pile. And if you were the person who had any ounce of rationality that decided to go and leave a comment that said something to the effect of, well, how do we even know this guy's guilty? Shouldn't he be given due process? Well, then, the mob is going to come at you because you're obviously a pred yourself. Let's look at your browser history. Yeah, you're probably down with this. You must be into this sort of thing and all that, and then you're attacked. When all you suggested was that maybe this person should have due process. And this is what's resulting in the growing, in the growth of fascism in this day and age, is that the internet is causing a mob to want immediate satisfaction at a time when the courts don't move fast enough. And when the law doesn't move fast enough to give people their immediate satisfaction, they start to question whether justice is even effective. When we've seen it time and time again that the law is effective, and in the end, you will reap what you sow. Just sometimes it takes a very long time for courts and evidence and things to do their thing, and then of course as power shifts, which happens in America, the shifting of power on a regular basis, and it's designed, of course, to do that. But we have a serious problem when people start demanding immediate results. And I think that the death of this nuance, especially with what we're seeing with the Epstein files, I feel like I was watching something the other day, TYT on YouTube, and they were having a discussion about Noam Chomsky and his email to Jeffrey Epstein. And they read the email. And the email was something to the effect of Noam Chomsky was advising Jeffrey Epstein in the email, saying something along the lines of like, I've been accused of things, in the past, and the best way to deal with accusations is just to ignore them. He's like, especially in my case, like I've been accused of being a Nazi and blah 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 blah. And he's like, how could you even prove something that you're not one, and all this other stuff. And he's like, so a lot of times you just need to let it go. You just need to ignore it. And of course, the people at TYT went on a tirade about how disgusting and how, oh God, Noam Chomsky, how could you be defending a serial predator? What is the matter with you? And all this, stuff like that. And I'm thinking, has anybody really considered the fact that, have you ever looked at the date of this particular email? Because when I look at things in a rational way, and I think if one of my very good friends called me up and said to me, I just got accused of doing something wrong to an underage child or whatever, my reaction is immediately going to want to defend my friend. I think we're all like that. My immediate reaction is going to want to advise my friend, oh, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. I'm sure that this is, she's probably a troubled child. Who knows? Because your immediate response is that you don't want to believe that a person that could do something that horrible. So your immediate response is going to be to defend them. Your immediate response is going to be not necessarily to defend them, but to, you're not going to look at it like they're automatically guilty. You're going to consider, well, you're my friend, and I don't think you would do something like that. So I'm going to talk to you like as if I don't think you would do something like that. Very normal reaction. And of course, they made the argument, well, he had been arrested in 2008 already. So even though all these charges weren't placed upon him at the time that Noam Chomsky had sent this email, that he had already been arrested. He had already did time in Florida. And it's like, right, but there was also a lot of, fuckery that happened with Alex Acosta, where he was relieved of all those charges. And if you're not looking under the hood at every detail of the case, and that's your friend, you're probably just assuming that, yeah, somebody accused you, but obviously if you really had done something, you'd be in prison. So, hey, we're all good. Everything's fine. You're not thinking, well, you were arrested before, so you must be this person. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, where did we as a society start believing that humans are perfect and that people, it's like, are you really surprised? Are you really surprised that when you're sitting there and you're like, I want transparency on everybody. I want to look at every email every celebrity sent everybody. Let's look at everything under the hood. Let's look at every private conversation. And then you're surprised that people are pigs and perverts and have, weird. I mean, why? How are you surprised? Let's look at your emails. Can we look under the hood at your emails? Can we look under the hood at your browser history? Can we look at you? And again, I'm not defending anybody doing anything, to chill. Obviously, that's horrendous. But my argument is that, a lot of people, you take the Epstein situation and it's like, all you see, we know there's evidence that Epstein did things. We now know that. I mean, there's a reason why Ghislaine Maxwell sits in a prison, right? Granted, a, you know, low security prison now, thanks to the current administration. But we know Epstein was guilty of doing things, right? But we don't know that just because somebody is in his emails, that person is guilty of doing the same thing. When you become wealthy and you rise to the heights of power, everybody that also has wealth and power is going to be in your circle. That's the way it's going to be. You're not going to be somebody who's worth billions and billions and billions of dollars and be hanging out with people that you knew who worked down at the 7-Eleven. It just doesn't happen like that. People who are in those circles hang around other people that are in those circles. So does it shock you that somebody like, Kevin Hart or Jamie Foxx or whoever it was, and, I don't want to throw out random names, but I know that there was like lots of different celebrities that were said to have been on his plane and said to have gone to his mansion. Yeah, the man threw parties. And he was a big donor. He gave lots of money to help start businesses and donated to huge causes and gave funding to nonprofits. And there's a myriad reasons why people would have something to do with him and be involved in his emails. And there's this online mob of insanity where just because somebody had emailed him or had an exchange with him, there's an immediate call to action to destroy, cancel, just completely abolish that person's legacy, and every single thing about them. And again, I'm not saying that some of these people might not have been guilty of things. What I'm saying is there hasn't been any evidence of that. If there was evidence of that, these people would have been indicted. They would just simply be indicted. Now, do I think that some of these people were involved and maybe had connections at the heights of power to have them, remove information that could have got them indicted? Sure. That's probably almost 100% that happened. Almost. I mean, I would believe. However, that speaks to a much larger problem. That speaks to a much larger problem where we need to actually talk about, well, what kind of society and system did we create that allows people at the heights of power who have all the wealth and money and power and so forth to be able to operate with impunity and be able to have relationships with government and have power over the people that decide that enforce the laws and have the ability to be above the law. We should be talking about that, because that is the system that, as long as that system prevails, then you're never going to solve the problem. So you could sit online and you could scream until you're blue in the face about they were all pedos and they were all this and they were all that and blah, 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 blah. Sure, but you're not doing anything about the problem if you don't attack the system that allowed what happened to happen. You have to change that system. You have to create a system of government that can't be so easily overthrown by people who have money and wealth. And that's the discussion that needs to be had, the much bigger discussion. But the idea that people who have money and power in our society and in the system that we have, the idea that they're not going to abuse it, that they're not going to go, hey, what's the most taboo, horrible thing that we're not allowed to do? Now we're rich and above the law. Let's do every kind of taboo, bad thing under the sun. Of course. What do you think? That hasn't happened since the dawn of mankind? Of course it has. And it's continuing to, it's happening right now. I guarantee you that the billionaires, like we just found out about Elon Musk, right? We just found out about X being raided in France because of the dissemination of illegal videos, and you know what I mean? We're finding out, it's like it wouldn't shock me if 20 years from now we find out that the top executives of the biggest tech app companies and social media, the heights of power at Facebook or the heights of power at that they're not throwing tech Silicon Valley parties that look like Diddy meets Epstein. I'm sure of it. Because when people get absolute power, when you have incredible amounts of money, and you end up feeling like you're above the law, that will absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is going to cause individuals to behave in depraved ways. Not everybody, but a lot of people, when they get drunk on money and power, will behave in depraved ways. It's not a secret. I mean, this has been going on forever, and it's still going on now. So this idea that we've uncovered something and, we're looking under the hood now and whoa, all these people, they're terrible. Oh, they had money and power and they abused it to do bad sexual deviant things. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's been going on forever. Probably go on for forever still. And the reason why it will go on forever still is because you're not doing anything about the systems that are in place that allow this to happen. There should be ways that we can protect our government from bribes or being bought off or allowing wealthy people to have power over them. There should be ways that we can prevent presidents from becoming felons from becoming presidents and then putting people in positions of power in the White House that will be able to get rid of evidence or remove things, or we should have things in place that prevent, maybe it could be a third party watchdog group. I know we have a watchdog, the inspectors general is kind of the watchdog group, but it was not infallible. Trump was able to just go in and get rid of everybody that did that. And he did at the start of this presidency. So we have to focus on the things, we have to focus on the systems that prevent these things. But the problem with being able to do that is that to get at the heart of what causes these issues, we need to respect nuance. We need to respect nuance. We need to be able to stop rushing to judgment. Everybody wants to rush to judgment and have an opinion that quick. The internet is not waiting for facts. It doesn't wait for context. It doesn't wait for courts. Everybody just rushes to judgment. And there's no patience. There's no distinction. There's no honesty behind, well, maybe we don't know all the information yet. Just reactions. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. Because a society that can't wait for the information to come in can't tell the difference between guilt and association, truth or what's rumor, what's speculation, what's actually justice, what's performative, what's spectacle. Nuance requires time. Thinking requires restraint. And restraint is the one thing that our current system actively punishes. And there's a reason for that. Because as long as it continues to do so, then the system continues to remain. So instead, we just get noise. We get mobs. We get pitchfork mobs on the internet. We get all these people with all this certainty. And that's how everything starts to break. People want to be first to the argument rather than be right. And this is very rapidly deteriorating the fabric of our culture, our society, our human civilization is being torn apart over this. And I say that because, again, yeah, it starts with America. I mean, look, we have it worse here. People are incredibly addicted to the internet. And I know a lot of people can say, well, I feel like I live in the upside down, Tom. Reality used to be reality. And then this group of conspiracy weirdos, who used to be on like underground radio suddenly started being on the internet, and then it started to grow and started to take off, and then they started to make money, and then it became a grift in business, and then investors began to invest, and then somehow through pushing this, these crazy conspiracy theories, they ended up so memed around the internet and so rapidly viral that now the conspiracy has become reality, and anyone who speaks of the old reality is now the conspiracy nut. And now we live in the upside down. Look, I'm with you. I'm with you. But here's the thing. That's only true if you live on the internet. That's only true if you live on the internet. If you walk outside, if you turn your phone off, if you get off your computer, and if you go outside, reality is still reality. And if you go outside, the law is still the law. And the law doesn't care about the internet. And even though it's slow, it will, and always does come back to bite those who thought they were above it. So it may feel like you live in the upside down, but it's just because you're on the internet. It's just because you're on the internet. And the internet breeds, or the internet promotes the death of nuance. Being outside, you have no choice but to deal with nuance. You have no choice. Because when you walk from wherever you live to whatever park you like to take a stroll in the afternoon, you have no choice but to look around at every detail of every apartment building or house you walk past. You have no choice but to look at every house. You have no choice but to look at the cracks in the pavement. You have no choice but to look at the leaves on the trees, the different people that walk by you, women, men, rich people, poor people, brown people, black people, white people, straight people, gay people. You have no choice because it's a long walk. It's a long walk where you have no choice but to take in the nuance. And that's why people behave in reality. But on the internet, reality is whatever your algorithm told you